Five, four, three, two, one. The podcast will start.
The Porsche Sport Podcast, powered by Porsche Centre Leeds. Test drive the new Porsche Taycan and experience soul electrified. Porsche Mobile 1 Supercup, Formula E, the IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship, 24-hour series, Porsche Carrera Cup, Endurance Motorsports, British GT, Porsche Club Great Britain, Sim Racing. The Porsche Sport Podcast.
Hello and welcome to a very special episode of the Porsche Sport Podcast, because today we have, well, a bit of a Porsche legend. We have Earl Bamber, a double outright Le Mans winner with the incredible 919 hybrid, now recent Sebring 12-hour winner, IMSA champion, Formula BMW Asia champion, and last but not least, Hamilton 400 trophy winner. As well, no least. Earl, welcome to the programme. Now, where are we finding you today? It looks like you're in a hotel room of some description.
Yeah, so at the moment I'm still in managed isolation. Don't worry, I don't have COVID-19, but to get back home to New Zealand, we have to do mandatory 2 weeks. So I'm nearing the end of it. I think I'm on day 11. Yeah, day 11. So just a few more to go. So counting down the days.
And how have you been filling your time in your hotel room?
Actually, I've got a lot of stuff to get through at the moment because we're expanding the racing team at the moment. So we're doing the things in America, but we're also going to Australia as well. So I'm heading up the Australian and Asians thing. My brother's doing the American thing. So I've got plenty to do at the moment. So it's not so bad.
Oh well, you'll be able to get all your admin done now. Earl, as we said before the show, I think someone needs to make a movie about your career and the ups and downs, but what you've gone on to achieve is just extraordinary. But the first question is, how did it all begin? Of course, there's been so many great drivers from New Zealand and who have done so well on the world stage. But how did it begin for you?
For me, it all began growing up on the farm. So Dad was a big fan of motor racing. He actually drove go-karts himself. Wasn't very good at it, to be honest, if you ask him. But he was really good on the gravel. And he has a massive passion for motor racing. He still watches every single race pretty diligently all around the world, whether it's 3 a.m. in the morning here or whatnot. He's still watching them. So he follows it closely. He loves it. It's his passion. So he wanted his kids to get involved. So we started go-karting when I was 7 years old. And that's as young as you can go in New Zealand. And to be honest, quite frankly, I was useless when I started. And I remember we were driving around all the time, and we were driving all around the country. And I clearly remember one day he asked me, like, are you sure you want to do this? And I'm like, yeah, I really like it, like a 7-year-old kid. And he goes, that's fine, but you're really bad. And I'm sick of going around the country, doing this because it's not fun for me. You finish last. And then one day we're at a go-kart track in Taranaki, and there's a big trophy there. And I remember saying, well, I'll go win that. And he was like, yeah, right, mate, you're still useless. But then I won. So that's sort of for me where I started winning and getting better. So that's where it really, really began at the grassroots side.
So how did it change then to go from last to winning? Was there anything you consciously had to change, or did you just go, right, I'm going to push much harder now? Or how did that change so quickly?
I don't know. I think it was probably the will and desire. I remember clearly that I wanted to win really, really badly and started to work really hard at it. I think there's also two types of kids now that I've looked back on it. There's kids that go flat out of the pits, and my brother was one, and he went flat out of the pits. First ever time in a go-kart, went flat around the first corner, and my dad's like, gee, he's incredible. And then flat around the next corner, and then flat into the fence. So, and I think when you're young, you see kids that sort of start off slowly and they take time to get up to something. And then you see kids that go out and crash 3 times in a row and then finally pick it up. So I think I was sort of in that bracket. And then, it started from there. I loved it, and we did go-karting. I think the most we ever did was like 40 weekends in a year when we were kids
Wow.
karting all around the country. New Zealand's really good because it's quite a small country, but you can do a go-kart race every weekend if you want, nearly.
So did it snowball after then? So once you started winning, did that really help your confidence and your kind of belief in yourself?
Yeah, no, it did, but it was still a long road. So we did cadet go-karting for like many, many years. And then I was actually began in the early days with Brendon Hartley. So we were at the same go-kart club and we used to sort of race each other and practice and all that sort of stuff. He was there a few years earlier than me. So that was like really, really cool to like grow up with the two of us racing against each other in different categories and stuff like that. And then I had a mentor with Raymond Hart, who was a very good go-karter from New Zealand, raced all around the world. I would say it would be in the 80s when Senna and these sorts of people were going through go-karts. He raced them. So he sort of mentored me and taught me everything that I knew on a go-kart level and racecraft and raceability. So he was a big mentor of mine when I was growing up.
Yeah. And when you moved to Formula Ford, how did you find that? Because I've read a few things where you say how important Formula Ford is. So yeah, to you, how did that go, and how did it, having that transition from karts into cars?
I mean, Formula Ford was really, really good. I was young doing it, and like I did it for a single season. We did actually quite well up and down as a young kid, learning on what to do. And I think it was good in that time when we did Formula Ford in New Zealand, there was like sometimes an oversubscribed field of like 34 to 40 cars sometimes. So it was really big field, and there was some really top quality guys at the front, which made it a good challenge in that racecraft and learning how to pass around a car and having cars close to you was a really, really good thing. And at the end of the day, they're not the prettiest thing to drive. Like they're not like a single seater where you can tune it perfectly. You've got to sort of adapt, and that sort of adaptability teaches you a lot of things. And I think the racecraft is the single biggest thing that you learn, and you get comfortable with people being near you and around you. Often when we do, what we do these days, it's not often that in junior single-seater categories, they've got so much downforce that someone can actually follow you or get near you. And especially if you're in a quick car, you just start at the front and then you never ever see anybody. So I think it is a really good training ground because you can start on pole and you're not going to get away with the draft and everything like that. So, and I think also we're lucky in New Zealand that we've got that sort of like old school circuits, a little bit like the UK where, if you go off, you still get punished for going off. And I think that's a really good thing to learn from. And it was a big step going actually to Europe, because when I went to Europe, the tracks are like opposite. So the way you approach a weekend is completely different. I always describe Europe now as basically, if you imagine you go down to a gymkhana and in a big parking lot and you go as fast as you can and try not hit the cones being the white lines, and get the car within the white lines. Rather, if you go normal driving, like rallying, you've got to build up to it. And I think I prefer the style where you have to build up to it, because the better drivers definitely rise to the top in that scenario.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where it's changed a lot, hasn't it? You look at some of these circuits like with Formula One and things, and how much tarmac there is on the edges and stuff. And it must be quite a different mindset when of course, that you are going to get punished if you make a mistake, and you've got to be very precise all the time. And like you say, it must make a big difference for the main guys and how they get to the top.
Yeah, and I think it's also in some way with the grass there, in some ways it's a little bit safer, I feel, because everyone sees and realizes the consequences, especially when they're young. Mm-hmm. Rather often, I think when you're younger, I remember the first time I went into a wall with a racing car, it really hurts. And you realize and you respect what you're doing. Rather, I think sometimes at the moment, because there's so much tarmac, it's very, very difficult to touch a wall quite often or have a big moment. So I think you don't ever get that respect of what's going on, and and we all saw on the weekend how dangerous the sport is still, and it still can be dangerous. And we've done massive strides forward, but I think that respect for what we're doing, when you have a big car park, it's quite hard to understand actually how fast we're going sometimes.
Absolutely. No, that accident with Grosjean, as you say, is a big reminder for sure.
Definitely.
And Earl, when it seemed from what I can see, it really your career ascended, coming from obviously did so well in New Zealand, then a very competitive field, but you went on straight onto a big stage, Formula BMW Asia, 16 years old, and you go and win the championship. What was the kind of route map at that point, or what were the opportunities that were on the table, or what should have been on the table at that point, would you say?
To be honest, the route map was never really that clear, because it was our first ever time doing it. And if we redid it now with the information that we know, then we'd do it probably very differently. But, when you're a family, you're first ever doing it. And also the other thing for us was what opportunities came up. So, we could afford to do the Formula BMW, and, we managed to do that. And then we were very lucky that we got really good sponsorship in New Zealand to do the Toyota Racing Series. But then after that, we sort of were hopping around at where opportunities would lie. And then the timing of it was bad with 07, 08 financial crisis. So of course. I was lucky enough that I got into an A1 GP car, but I think I was 17 or 18 years old. And looking back on it, it was really good to go there. But the only thing that I'd had experience with was like a 220 horsepower Toyota Racing Series car. And then you're going against guys that have done Champ Car and everything like that. And arguably, you could be very competitive on lap time, but definitely the experience and the depth, like you probably shouldn't be driving that car at that time. But at the end of the day, that was what was available to do. So that was the thing that we did, if that made sense.
Absolutely.
So,
you had to go where the opportunities were, basically.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if we had the funding to do it, then we would have probably done it differently and a bit slower. But in the end, that's where we got to. And in the end, I still wouldn't change it, because those sort of tough times when I did A1GP made me better prepared when I came back and also did my stuff when I started the Porsche stuff. It made me much more prepared. The fact that I'd done the A1GP, and actually was one of the reasons why I got a test eventually in the in the LMP1 car as well, because I had that very high downforce single-seater background also when I did the couple GP2 races and stuff like that too.
I see. And you mentioned about, getting the funding together. I understand there's a group of guys in New Zealand who have helped a number of Kiwi drivers to get onto the world stage. One of which being Colin Giltrap, the automotive dealer. How was it for you or who were the people who really helped you get? I mean, obviously single-seater racing is incredibly expensive. Who were the people who helped you to get up the ladder at that stage?
I mean, definitely the Giltrap family was a huge involvement. They gave me the chance in Toyota Racing Series. Then they gave me the chance in the A1GP car. So that was a huge thing for me to work with them. And to be honest, still to this day, we work together, and we do stuff with the Porsche Carrera Cup and now Porsche New Zealand and everything like that. So they're a huge supporter of New Zealand racing, but also young people in general and athletes. So their big passion is motor racing, but there's probably 50 to 100 other things that they also support, which you never ever see them support. And I think, there's not that many people that are that genuine in the world that are just out there to just generally give people a leg up and help them out, if that makes sense. So I think they're a huge reason why we're very successful in motor racing, but also in other sports as well.
So if you're listening, folks in New Zealand, you want to buy a car, buy it from Giltrap Group.
Exactly.
Now, a couple of years later, Earl, you're 20 years old, and then all of a sudden you find yourself in Inner Mongolia racing a 750 horsepower V12 single-seater car for a football club. Tell us about that. That's just a bizarre scenario.
Yeah, it was bizarre because, like I said, with 08, I drove a little bit in 09. So I drove the Toyota Racing Series, finished second, won the New Zealand Grand Prix, and again, was always still trying to move and get that step into Europe. But we all know that timing was really horrible, if that makes sense. It's just a hard time in the industry in general. But I wanted to stay relevant. So I found a job actually commentating. So I'd done some commentating in the past, and I ended up commentating for the championship. And there was always this running joke that I should drive. But I said, well, okay, but yeah, how do you end up paying for it? But we went into Mongolia, and actually Alvaro Parente forgot to get a visa. So I arrived. And then, I ended up that he got me basically through that. I ended up getting a seat, and I hadn't driven in so long, and I remember it clearly. So we were quite quick, and I think we qualified sixth in the first race, finished third. And then the next race, because they were back-to-back 45-minute races, I was like exhausted because you have to start last, and we finished like eighth or something like that. But I was exhausted. I was like 1.5 hours in the car, and I hadn't driven in 2 years, like a proper car in a year. And then we had this like 6-lap super final or 5-lap super final, and I was like, right, I just made it in, and I was like, I can do this. And we ended up winning, and then I got invited for the next weekend and won again as well.
Great start. So with the fitness then, obviously not being in a car and then thrown into one, had you always kept fit in between those? So kept your training up and pushing hard like that?
Yeah, but there's a thing called like race fitness, and your body just gets the shock. And I think the other thing is that because you're not used to driving a car, you're not 100% relaxed in there because your body's relearning all the sensation. You're just very tense inside the car. So, like often for us when we learn a track for the first time, it's probably the first 5 or 10 laps is the hardest because you're really, your heart rate's elevated, you're trying to learn something, you're on the edge. But as soon as you get comfortable, then your heart rate drops, and then it's quite easy. So that race fitness is what you miss. It's also why like I've got a go-kart at home now, so I go-kart all the time just for that race fitness. It's all well and good to go to the gym, but to go out and drive the kart and concentrate in the way that we do elevate your heart rate anyway. So that's a really good form of training.
And far more fun, I'm sure, as well.
Oh, it's a lot more fun. It's a lot more fun than running on the treadmill, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And of course, tell us about the move to Malaysia, Earl, because this for me personally, I've had worked over in Malaysia before in my previous job. It's an incredible place, but what was first of all, what was the reasoning to go to Malaysia, but also tell us about the opportunity that kind of emerged there when you got there?
Well, I mean, at that time, there was not much happening in New Zealand motor racing. So my dad had the idea to go to Asia. It was still an emerging market. And also, I had some contacts from when I did Formula BMW. So I managed to get some gigs doing driver coaching up there. And I was sort of team managing and coaching for a single-seater team. And then I managed to also end up starting coaching some Porsche Carrera Cup drivers. So in doing that, then eventually someone said, oh, you should have a driver. We've heard that you're quick. So I got a couple laps in a car. And then Adrian, who's now a really good friend of ours, now, God, it must be already coming on 8 years, said, yeah, have a drive. And he said, oh, wow, you're quick. And later on that year, he said, okay, well, I'll let you have a car, but you got to find the funding. So we managed to scrape together the funding to enter the championship. And we were going round by round by round, getting the funding. And it was sort of always something that I knew. So I was quite comfortable with it in that scenario of, you have to get the funding, you can't. And the one thing that I knew at the end of the tunnel was this Porsche Scholarship. So actually, I wasn't that interested in winning the championship because I was up against guys that had done the championship like Martin Regengear and stuff like that for many years. And my main goal was to win that scholarship. But during the year, we got our first win and the momentum continued. And from that, finally, we won the championship and got to go to the scholarship. So for me, I knew that was sort of my like one chance. I was on the age limit as well to be able to go to the scholarship. So that was a big thing for me, was to try win that scholarship. And there was a lot of people that helped out that year. Also, towards 2 races here, and we basically ran out of money. And then now my long-term sponsor or long-time sponsor, LKM, also kicked in at the end and helped us finish the season, even though they weren't branded on the car. So it was a really fun time. It was a really cool time because in the end it was ringing, calling, trying to make it happen. And I really enjoyed that racing. For me, I'm a big advocate of Carrera Cup racing, and I think it's some of the best racing that you can do in the world as a young driver to learn, but also as a gentleman guy getting into the sport and stuff like that as well. So and the people that I met in those years of Carrera Cup are still very good friends and see them race all around the world. So it is one of the best platforms. And then, went to the scholarship, and I remember going there and, doing my time. And actually was that before? And then I think I also managed to do a race, and basically with that scholarship, we did it, I can't remember in the succession, but I got chosen to do it. And then, then I also managed to get a seat to do a Porsche Mobile One Supercup race in Abu Dhabi, which was a track I happened to know from when I did GP2 race.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I knew it from something. That I'd driven.
Yeah, of course, it was quite new at that point. It was almost brand new at that stage, the Yas Marina track. Mm-hmm.
I forget what I'd driven there, but I definitely knew it. No, it was GP2. I did a GP2 race there, and that's how I knew the track. So from that, then I was it not? No, maybe I didn't know it. Maybe I didn't know. Don't know. I knew it when I did the LMP1 test there, though. That was for sure. But basically qualified on pole for my first ever Supercup race, which was a bit of an unheard of thing. So, and finished second in the race to Nicky team. So that was sort of my pathway into Europe.
And were you surprised by your pace? Were you expecting to be that quick straight away?
I wasn't expecting to be that quick. I was hoping to get inside the top 10, to be honest. But I think from my first hard time in Europe, I'd learnt about how to plan it better. So the mistakes of what I did, or what we did in the first time round in Europe, I knew about how to go about it in a better way the second time around when I was going to plan those events and do those events. So that's why I say, even though we had didn't have the chances in, late 2000s, I wouldn't change it for anything, because it was also a character building thing that turned me into the driver that I am today. So I wouldn't change it for anything either.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So when did the communications really start with the Porsche factory then?
Well, that was when the scholarship started. So I began with the scholarship in 2014, and obviously then I was under the umbrella and doing the Porsche Mobile One Supercup. And at that time, I decided to bite off a lot and enter 3 championships. So I entered Carrera Cup Asia, Carrera Cup Supercup, and then at the last minute with Timo Bernhard, I got the chance to drive with him in Carrera Cup Germany. And in the middle part of the year, we were actually leading all 3 championships in the world. So, but I had to drop out of Carrera Cup Germany because of clashes. But we were leading, I think, Germany by 19 points. I think we still finished 5th or 6th in the championship, even though we didn't do the last 4 or 5 rounds. But, and then in Le Mans, I did the Le Mans Porsche race just to get experience. And then I remember starting to watch the factory team sit in the pit box just to watch and observe and learn and, absorb what's going on. And then at the end of, before I finished the championship, I got the opportunity to drive the RSR at Petit Le Mans. So I think we finished 2nd there or 3rd the first time, but that was when I first drove a factory car, and then in 2015 became factory driver.
Excellent. Really just fascinating to listen to be honest, with that kind of pressure and having to deal with that and responding to it each time as well. And you must have been exhausted doing 3 championships like that, and then dropping to 2. I mean, it must have been physically and mentally just absolutely exhausting.
Actually, I enjoy it, and I always like to keep busy, otherwise I get quite bored. So yeah, it was good fun. I really enjoyed it. It was good to drive the same car every week as well. And like I said, for me, it's some of the best racing that you can do in the world. It's so much fun and it's so good to do. And then also in late December, then I got asked to do the LMP1 test as well. So that was really, really amazing to drive such a high downforce prototype car as well again. So that was sort of a real highlight. And then to go onto that journey, obviously, into Le Mans was something incredible and unexpected, because that was sort of, again, like a dream, but it wasn't sort of on the radar because I didn't consider myself to be selected for that. I just joined Porsche and they could choose anyone they wanted in the world to drive that car. So I didn't really consider myself that I'd immediately get chosen to drive that car.
Funny, I read a piece just this morning that was published 2 days ago that Daniel Ricciardo had been I don't know if he'd been offered the seat, but he'd been in discussions with it, and Red Bull didn't let him. So you got to send a thank you to Red Bull.
I think there was a lot of, to be honest, there was a lot of people that were in discussion with that they weren't allowed to do or whatnot. So I think it was probably a little bit of really good timing as well, to be honest. And sometimes I don't think you need good luck in racing sometimes, but I think you need good timing, especially when the right seats open at the right moments is probably the key thing for young drivers these days. I think there's a skill in, people don't appreciate, and it's a good comment, let's say, in Lewis Hamilton, is that people don't appreciate how much hard work there is to get inside the right car as well. And that is something that is needed as a race car driver, is that you need to make those right decisions at the right moments to go with the right teams and have that sort of feeling. And easy examples, if you look at Alonso, he's probably made quite a few mistakes in choosing the wrong team, and at the end of the day you can say, okay, well, it's not fair that I'm not in the best car, but at the end of the day that is part of being a racing car driver, is to get inside the best car at the right moment.
Yeah, I could totally agree with you. And I guess for me, it seems also, Earl, that you thoroughly deserved that opportunity because you were, like you say, you were so visible because you're doing, I mean, who else would be doing 3 championships at that time and also being around the pit box? I probably thought you made a good nuisance of yourself at that point, just being around with a headset.
Pretty much, but at the end of the day, what's the worst that they can do? The worst they can do is say, you can go home because you're just in the pits too much. And I also say that at the same time, when we're doing some of the development stuff, I'm probably one of the drivers that speaks up and is a bit more hard with it. But I say to them, well, at the end of the day, if you're going to get upset about someone trying to make a race car as fast as you possibly can, then I'm perfectly happy with people being upset for that reason, because at the end of the day, isn't that what we're all here to do, is to make cars go as fast as they can and win races. So that's sort of what lies and sets with me really well is obviously that stuff.
So let's I feel like it's almost the elephant in the room. Let's talk about Le Mans 2015, because the story of that is incredible. Porsche, they've just come back with the 919 hybrid in 2014, and the last time they won, you and Brendon Hartley are tearing around the family farm in go-karts and what have you. So it'd been a long time for Porsche, and to bring a third car of that complexity is an extraordinary effort. But coming into it was you, it was Nick Tandy and Nico Hülkenberg, who was in Formula One at the time. Did you feel like underdogs at that point compared to the guys who were doing it full time?
I think, for sure we were, because we didn't have the pure track time that had, and we were sort of, made up with the third crew, and often we didn't run with our own crew. We were running with their crew and, just jumping in when we got the chances to. And there wasn't a long-term plan that they would run the third car longer than what they did, that it wasn't a single year thing, but it turned into be a single year thing. And, we were testing, we were working harder. And I think because we were probably the underdogs, we worked really, really hard to try to catch up to the others, which was also, I think, a benefit for us. And we had probably we had a really horrid Spa with the cars, with issues and stuff like that. And it was a really tough race for Porsche, and we were sort of on the back foot for going to Le Mans. I would say we weren't, definitely not the favourite compared to Audi, but the work that everyone did at Porsche was incredible. And it's a shame that no one ever sees the testing, because, and, I think Le Mans wouldn't be as special to win if you just turned up and did the race. That journey that you do with everybody, and the fact that everyone is invested to work for 365 days to win a single race. And the cars are built around Le Mans. They're not built to win the WEC. They're built to win Le Mans. And to do such a project like that with so many people that were so enthusiastic, and Andreas Seidel built an incredible team, was probably also what makes it so special winning that race, as well as to win it with every other person. You know, I think that weekend there was 175 people there to run the 3 cars, and you know, it was a full team effort. And but that's what makes that journey, is that testing and that, you know, development work. And we worked so hard, and quite frankly, going into the race, I don't think the car had ever done more than 12 hours without breaking down catastrophically. Yeah. So
okay.
We never really expected. We expected to be fast, but we weren't sure that we'd actually last either. So on our car, we just went with the approach that we're just going to try to beat the race, and beating the race is an easier task than what it sounds like, which basically says drive for 24 hours fast, don't hit anything or get any penalties. It seems very simple, but it's actually really, really hard. Yeah. And I think, you know, the first thing is you've got to try beat Le Mans, and often it's really easy to get caught up in competing against other people, and, you know, to then the mistakes happen, and then the place bites, and then you end up laps and laps down. So yeah, in the end, we just did no mistakes, and we were actually very fast, and you know, won by 1 lap, which was absolutely incredible. You know, through the night we pushed really hard and got an advantage and maintained it.
And
is it
sorry, go on, Kat.
Sorry, is it tempting to push against your teammates as well? Because obviously you're in the same car, you're bound to naturally want to be the quickest. I mean, how do you manage that? Because of course you've got to bring it home as well and make sure obviously you don't make those mistakes.
I think it requires a mindset change, and it took me, even from 15, it took me a couple of years to get used to it, because, and, you know, sort of it really flourished with my, you know, current teammate Lawrence, because, you know, you're always taught as a driver that you want to beat absolutely everyone around you, and, you know, use every tactic that you can to win the races, you know, mentally, on the track, the whole thing. But then when you're in a team, then you need to use and learn to use your strengths and weaknesses with each other to, you know, form the best team. So, you know, some of us are good naturally at something, some are naturally bad. So it's the same in any sport with any athlete, that, you know, people have tendencies and people are some better at things than others. So you need to learn to know what your strengths and weaknesses are. And that's why some driving combinations also especially complement each other, because they complement each other's weaknesses with their strengths. So I think that's what also worked really good with us, is that we all worked very well as a team, and we didn't really care who was the quickest. And that's probably what the big thing that young drivers need to learn in endurance racing, is that nobody remembers if you did the fastest lap. They only remember if you win the race. And, you know, again, you need to be with the right driving crew. So it's important in that sense.
What were your first impressions of, obviously you've done a lot of testing, but what was the first impressions of those first few laps in the car at Le Mans, Earl? Did you have a bit of a pinch yourself moment going down the Mulsanne thinking, oh, we've arrived here, this is I like a bit of this?
I think, to be honest, the shock was maybe not so much in Le Mans, because you're focused on the job at hand. The bigger one was in Abu Dhabi when we first tested it, because you know, you sit in there and you know, start the engine and it sounds like a little bit of a spaceship when the battery wears up and stuff like this, and it's absolutely incredible. You know, the whole thing is crazy, and the speed and the power that it had. It's a shame. I'm not sure we'll ever see something like it built again anytime soon, but it was absolutely phenomenal.
And talk about, you know, coming through the week when you're going into the race. Obviously, I'm sure you and Nick and Nico talked a lot before, but coming into the race, did it through the practice? Were you thinking, you know, we're in with a shot here, or did your confidence grow throughout the week building up to the race?
I think we sort of knew that we could be there or thereabouts, that we could do a good job, but I think mainly our confidence grew during the race as well, that as we saw that we were competitive and our car started to get better and better and better, and some others got slower, then we knew that we could do it.
I see. Well, let's. Why don't we talk about IMSA, because I want to talk about Bamthor, which has been a big part of your recent career, your partnership with Lawrence Vantor. I mean, what is it that's you guys have had so much success? Obviously, IMSA champions in 2019, won a lot of big races. But what clicked between you and Lawrence?
But it's actually interesting because when we were coming back from LMP1 and that stopped, I was asked who I'd like to actually team up with. And I said I'd like to team up with Lawrence. And
okay. The
reason being is he's the same age as me, give or take a year. And I think we've got the same interests and we share the same passion of winning racing. And I think I figured then that we'd be a really good fit and that we'd work together well. And in the end, it has worked really, really well. We've worked together very well. Like I said, we play to our strengths and our weaknesses, and we know each other well. We trust each other inside the car all the time, and it just works good. And it's been a lot of fun. It's a shame that the program stopped and that we won't be teammates next year. Hopefully, we'll do a couple of the big races together. But it's been really, really fun to work together to build a team around us. And what we managed to build at the end of 2020 was pretty special. We had such a strong group of people, mechanics, engineering, the whole thing. So it was cool. And the style of racing in America I really like. It's what we spoke about at the top of the show is those old school tracks, and that's what America is. It's old school tracks. And if you build up to it and you take a risk, you gain lap time for it and you gain an advantage on your competitors, but at the same time your weekend could be over. So it's that managed risk is such a cool thing.
You just not have to ask Lawrence to park the hire car at Mid-Ohio.
No. And that's also what's been cool is that we've had some cool adventures, Mid-Ohio. I started cycling. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But, we've had so many adventures along the way. It's been really cool. We did the Bamthor clothing thing by complete fluke, by accidentally. We just asked some fans if they'd buy T-shirts, figured no one would buy them, put it online because 5 people might buy it. Then 200 people bought T-shirts. So then we didn't know how to ship them. Because we hadn't even produced them. We were 5 people who would just get them printed somewhere because no one's going to buy T-shirts, but then everyone bought our T-shirts. So, we've had those cool adventures along the way as well.
I've got 2 in my collection. They're in the wash right now. I was going to wear one today, but
exactly. And that was the thing, is that we didn't expect people to actually go out and have such a big uptake in it, but it was actually really cool. And we saw fans with number plates. We saw dogs with T-shirts on them and all sorts of things. And it was sort of like a thing something to give back to the fans, and something more fun than just your regular team clothing T-shirt, your jacket that you can buy. It was a bit edgy sometimes. Got in trouble for a few of them, but it's okay.
While we're on the subject of IMSA, where obviously it's been a big part of your career, what's your favourite event on the IMSA calendar? Because there's so many cool races. Which is your favourite of the bunch?
I really like Long Beach because I love street racing.
Yes,
which is good. With the fountain and everything like that, it's really good. It's just the whole atmosphere, the whole thing is great.
You've reminded me of a question I was going to ask. The Long Beach last year, you and Lawrence won, and it is such a tough race, but it probably doesn't need to be made any more difficult. But the rear diffuser on the RSR 17, for those listening who've never seen it, it's enormous. There's a huge big deck on the back of it, which is used to push the car down. Now that basically detached itself when you got into the car, did it not? And you had the Corvette all over the back of you, and you still managed to win. I mean, tell us about that, driving around the streets of Long Beach with the diffuser hanging off at the back.
Well, I've had a nightmare run at Long Beach with random failures. And the year before, was it the year before? Yeah, the year before we were leading as well. So every year we've led. Every year since 16. So I didn't do it in 17. So 16, 18, 19, we always led the race. And in A team, we were leading easily. There was a safety car, and then under safety car, the suspension broke. And then they didn't believe me. So then there's a video of it smoking and car pulling around. But yeah, the suspension pickup point broke. And so it was like, oh God. So we were leading and lost a race. And, this time we were out front and leading comfortably. And then you start to feel the diffuser break. And then you're like, oh God. But it was getting really, really bad. And I was just like, oh, please, like, don't do this to us again, Long Beach. It's like that one thing. But in 2019 was the opposite to 2020. But in 19, everything worked. Normally when you have that problem, then you lose a race, but we never did. And in 2020, we were always going well. And then everything that you can imagine would happen to us and go in the wrong way. So, you have those years, and 19 was a year, one of those years that just everything worked for us.
It certainly did. It all came together. I mean, here's a question for you. Would you rather have, obviously you do have an IMSA championship, would you trade it for a Rolex 24-hour winner's watch?
No, I probably wouldn't actually.
You would keep the championship.
Yeah, I like championships. I like the watches are very nice, but you can get a watch and you can do a good. I mean, you can do a good race, but at the end of the day, a championship's an accumulation of a year's work.
Yeah,
and at the end of the day, it shows consistency and that you were the best in all circumstances. And that's what I like, is that you can write, the championships are a big tick item, to be honest, to win a championship. You can have a good day and win a single big race, like Spa 24, they're amazing things to tick off. But I think also those, when you win a championship, it's something special. It's an accumulation of, a year's work. And, it's something to be very proud of. Sometimes I don't think people appreciate how big a thing winning a championship is.
Especially, well, that's, obviously in 2017, you got your second outright Le Mans win in one of the strangest Le Mans, I think, for many years. And people breaking an LMP2 car nearly won the race, of course, from my memory. But that year you did obviously won the World Endurance Championship as well as Le Mans. Now, people nowadays will see LMP1 and they just see a Toyota cakewalk, but at that time it was a whole nother animal with Audi, your teammates in Porsche, and also Toyota as well. How tough was it for you at that point, the competition at that point in 2017?
Yeah, I mean, it was awesome, quite frankly. I mean, I think 15 was the absolute pinnacle with the cars, because we had, Toyota, 3 Audis, 3 Porsches, and it was an awesome fight. And also the speed of the cars were amazing. They hadn't slowed them down by then. We still had a lot of fuel flow restriction, very open fuel flow meter and stuff like that. So it was awesome to drive. They were so fast. And then in 17 was still that hype, that fight, that battle, especially with Toyota. It was really cool. And, for me, that's what I seek as a driver, is to go against the best. And it also made the idea of going back to IMSA very easy as well, because we were very lucky. Now we start to see the demise of GTLM and GTE, which is sad, but something else will come along. But at the end of the day, we also saw a golden area of that, where we saw, like in IMSA, we saw 8 cars, and people think, oh, okay, it's only 8 cars. But when we speak about 8 cars, we speak about 8 factory cars where no expense is spared, that they can choose anybody that they wish to drive those cars. And the competition is so immense and so intense. And that's why I rate a championship, because it's that accumulation of trying to, do everything right. When you fight Ford, Corvette, Ferrari occasionally, BMW, I mean, it's really, really cool. And it's really sad to see it go. And I think, you know, our podium in 2000, when did we finish on the podium? In 19 as well, at Le Mans. There was 17 Pro GTE cars on the grid. You know, that was phenomenal and phenomenally cool how much, you know, how big that race was. So, you know, very, very lucky to actually have competed in that sort of golden era of factory GT racing as well.
Absolutely. I remember I was at the Rolex 24 this year, and I would sort of go back and forth between the media centre and trackside. I love going to get trackside as much as possible. And I stood at the kink in the middle of the night, and it was you were in the car. I can't remember who was in the 911, and then it was Chaz Mostert was in the BMW, and you guys were just on each other's case like a go-kart race for 24 hours. It was exceptional to watch
until they decided that they wanted to go in.
Yeah, until they hit the afterburners on the speedway. Yeah. Okay, so let's you've as we talked about just before we came on air, you're now you've kind of poacher turned gamekeeper, or the other way around. You're now a team owner. You've now got to organise the cars and all that kind of stuff like that. Earl Bamber Motorsport. Tell us how Earl Bamber Motorsport began and where it is now.
Began by accident as well. No, I have a little brother that also races. So, and, you know, Dad focused it on me more than what he focused on him. And at the end, he moved up to Asia and was also working. And I said to him at the end of the day, I wanted him to have a chance, an opportunity at it, you know, that he can look back and say, look, I had a good go at it. And I think that's what you can only ask for as a young kid, is that you had your chance and goal. What you make of that is then your own choice. Sure. and But so I said to him, look, I'll buy a cup car if you fund it. It's exactly the same as what I had. And but I didn't really believe that he would find that money. The issue was he did. He did find it. Then I had to find a car from somewhere, which I didn't know where I was going to get one. So I found a car, and in the first year, I, you know, owned a car. And then in the second year, motorsport being motorsport, he had to drive, and that all fell apart. So again, then I said, okay, well, we'll own two cars. And then we sold one seat to somebody, and he drove the other car and found the funding and the sponsorship. And it started literally just like that, you know, privately. And then probably the big formulation of it, because I think we were running two or three cars, but it was not really big and commercial. And then I actually was asking for me and Lawrence to do Bathurst 12-hour. And then so I made a pitch document and said, this is what we need to do, and blah, 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 and posted to Porsche. And then they said, oh, no, you can't drive because these drivers are going, but you've got a race team and you're pitching to do the race. And I was like, I don't know if I am or not. Like, I guess I am. And then that's where the GT3 thing started. And then we did, you know, 5 cup cars last year, and then also some of the GT3 stuff. And we had planned this year with World Challenge, one Pro-Am car and IGTC. So that's sort of where it lies now. And to be honest, it's been a great journey. It's been a cool journey. It's heavily supported by the Giltrap family. It's also heavily supported by one of my longtime sponsors, because they see it as a big thing to have a business in it, and with someone that knows the sport and a name as well. And in the end, it's also a good thing for me to sort of play with and learn business side as well. You know, why not learn in a sport that you know very well? So learned a huge amount, to be honest. It's been really cool. And some of the things that you probably, you know, you think, okay, I'm going to get a big kick out of winning a race, which you do, but it's also some of the like personal things that you see, like, you know, you see your driver win their first podium, and even some of our Pro-Am guys get their first podium. They're so over the moon, and you get a big kick out of that. Or, you know, from Asia, we send a local mechanic to Europe, and, you know, going through the process of the fact that they don't even have clothes to go to Europe because they're not used to the cold. Okay. And the whole thing, it's like a big dream for them to go overseas. So, you know, some of those things have been like a really really, really cool, actually, to be honest, rather than what you would stereotypically think you might get out of it. And now we're working very hard on a scholarship program as well to sort of allow young Kiwis to move from some of the struggles that I had, and basically managed to get together half of the sponsorship to do so, basically to provide stable platform to provide half of the sponsorship for a Carrera Cup season. So some of it comes from us as a racing team, so we put in like 1/3 of it, and then through the Guild Traps and some other people, the other 2/3 come along. So we're quite proud of that, and it's quite a cool thing to start to work to give back into sort of motor racing and to the young people as well.
That's a fantastic initiative, and well, I wish there was more of that in motor racing. No, you should be very proud of that. Now, do I understand correctly that Adrian now races in one of your cars? So
yes, he does.
How is that going around? Like, 8 years ago, or 7 years ago, he put you in a car, and now you've got him in one of your cars.
Yeah, it's actually really funny, and I mean, he loves motor racing. He's got a huge passion for it, and I think he's also super proud of the race team that we've got now too. And he likes everything that it's about as well. And he tried to do a racer team, and he was unsuccessful at it. So it plays at him, because I think it's the only thing he's not been successful at business at. So he's also very supportive of what we do as well, and it's just a cool journey. And I think same thing with the Le Mans thing, is that it's not the same without the people that you do the journey on with. That's what makes it. It's all well and good to be successful, but those people that you go on the journey with also make it really, really cool. And one, like, even a cool little thing is that we brought back my original 997 Cup car, so we have that in the garage. Me and Adrian, we're going to put it back in the championship livery one day once COVID reopens, once everything opens, and probably just go drive it for fun. So it's having those sorts of things that's also cool.
That's very cool. And just the final, second question about the team. I mean, what were your feelings as a team owner when someone who's now a kind of colleague with you, Matt Campbell, when he pulls off one of the most extraordinary overtaking manoeuvres I think I've ever seen in your car, to obviously win the Bathurst 12 Hours? I mean, what were your emotions at that point? Were you thinking, "Don't scratch my car," or were you thinking, tell us about that experience when you're powerless, as with your headset on, you're not driving? What was that like?
Well, to be honest, I was really annoyed, quite angry, 30 minutes before the end of the race, because we'd put a huge amount of work in, and we took tyres at the last stop, and we came out fourth or fifth, and I was like, oh god, for all this work we're going to end up fifth. I hate losing, so fifth, you might as well come 10th. It's just horrible. So I wasn't all that happy, and then we passed fourth, I think, like that. I think we just got past Mostert, but it was going to be a real tall order to get to the front, and then all of a sudden this late safety car came along, and it all came alive and came at the right moment. And actually, knowing what we know now, I think we would have won anyway, because the Aston was out of brakes.
Yeah.
So they were done, and the Mercedes had no tyres left, and I think, and one of the other cars was the same issue. So we actually probably would have done it anyway. But before that I was like, oh, and then he did such an amazing job, and it was just incredible. It was also cool. I mean, for us, it's amazing that we got the first win for Porsche ever at the mountain as well. Mm-hmm. So, that was also a big ticket item.
I can imagine.
And it actually drove there last weekend. A friend of mine bought the car, and it's still in the original livery.
Oh, that is a good. Who designs the liveries? Because there's some of the most amazing looking racing cars with the silver ferns and things like that on it.
Actually, it was someone from from Porsche Motorsport Asia Pacific got it to be done. So that's where it sort of started. And in the end, now we try to make something a bit more eye catchy. A bit more extreme, because people like it, and you get more attention from it as well. So, and at the end of the day, it's all about sponsors and selling the thing. So it is really cool to be able to do those sort of wild liveries.
Good excuse to sell more T-shirts as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep, exactly. Unfortunately, we shut down the Banfield store now. We were. No one actually noticed, but if you actually have a look at the 912 closely from the Sebring race, there's a Banfield sticker on the front bonnet, but no one's really seen it yet.
Wow. Okay.
Now,
Was that the one that Lawrence nearly took off halfway through the race?
Yeah, exactly. But it's next to the fuel mix cover, and it survived the race. But yeah, we put that on there.
Now, there's been a couple of races this year, but I know Kat's got a couple more questions before we draw to a close.
Sorry, yeah, well, I was going to mention Spa actually. The 24-hour Spa. So did you, I mean, obviously it was a bit of a heart and mouth moment at the end of the race. I mean, was it what you were expecting to come away and win that? Did you guys think you had a chance?
Actually, it was a really, really tough week for us. We didn't get a chance to test due to COVID at all, the car. So the first time that we'd all driven the car was that week. And then me and Lawrence did a test on Tuesday, and it was great. Like, we were really, really good. And we were happy. We were pretty comfortable with the car. And then we don't know what actually was wrong with it, but we just got like worse and worse and worse during the week. And we struggled. Like, honestly speaking, we struggled for pace. We made the top 20, but we qualified last in the top 20, like miles off the pace. So it wasn't like we had me and Lawrence had a car that was sort of top 5, top 3 speed last couple of years, but we generally didn't have, you know what I mean, like amazing speed. And I started the race, I think we got up to like 13th, and we chipped away at it, but it wasn't like we had a car to drive to the front. And that's probably, and when we look back at their analysis, I think we were the 6th fastest Porsche. Like, we weren't fast. Yeah. It's not like we were the quickest Porsche or anything like that. We were like really, really slow. But the team did some great calls. Like, in the middle of the night, at one point in time, we managed to cycle to the front on fuel strategy and got up in the top. We were actually leading the race in the middle of the night. People forget that, actually, because everyone says we only led in the last hour. We actually led in the middle of the night. I remember leading 2 or 3 laps. And then we ran solidly second for a while. And once we got clear track, our car was okay in clear air. And that's sort of like a defining moment. And the team did a really good job. Like, the team did an awesome job all race, always on the money with the strategy, solid pit stops. Some of the big teams got penalties for silly things, and we never got a penalty. We were just like, we weren't like the most amazing ever, but we were just solid, and that set us up at the end of the race. And then we had actually compromised the setup, and we went for a wet setup in the race as well.
Okay.
So we knew rain was coming at the end, so we compromised the car setup to be good in the rain. And we were really good in the heavy rain, and then we were really not good in the greasy conditions. And me and Lawrence couldn't watch the last 30 minutes of the race. It was terrible. We actually like went in the truck and watched something else, like, and just talked because we didn't want to watch. And then with like 10 minutes to go, we were like, okay, now it should be all right. We'll go in the box. And then, like, on the second to last lap, then obviously like Nick comes in and says, oh, it's going to break. And then we were like, that would be horrible. That would be just our 2020 to top it off, leading Spa 24 and break down on the last lap. But it managed to last. I've seen a picture of what it was, and it's not pretty.
What was actually wrong with the car? What was it in the end?
It was something to do with the gearbox.
So actually, was it stuck in 5th gear or something? It sounded like it was stuck in gear for a while.
No, it was just slowly disintegrating. But you see, because on the last lap we drove 11 seconds slower than the previous lap.
Yeah.
But the Audi couldn't catch us because all the oil was coming out of the gearbox.
Yeah, of course.
So all the oil was leaking into the track. So no one could actually get close enough to us.
it sounds like a Mario Kart, like power up. You know, when it throws the bananas out the back of the car.
Exactly. And then we were looking back in it, and I don't know if you followed SRO, but they were going to do the 25 hours of Spa that year because of the time change difference. And we were like, thank God they didn't do that, because we would have been out with an hour to go.
Yeah,
I remember that. Yeah, now this is Kat's being very modest, because we in most of the big endurance races the week before we'll do a preview on the show, and we'll make our predictions and who's going to win, who's going to come second, etc. And Kat usually just sits back and says, "No, you go first, boys. You go first. And we're because we've got no manners, we do go first, and we get it wrong every time. Luke and I. But Kat, who was your choice for Spa 24, Kat?
Yeah, I did. I was loyal, and I picked you guys. So
Nice.
For once,
to be honest,
I went in for that. By the way,
we were confident in it. We knew that we had a good driver lineup and a really good team, and that's why it was such a tough race, like a tough week for us as well, because we weren't where we expected ourselves to be, but we just worked hard at it.
And did you ever work out where the lack of pace was? I mean, looking back, do you guys now know why you guys were, off the pace initially?
No, we don't actually know what it was. We don't know.
Okay.
We just know that it turned normal one way and not normal the other way.
Right. Okay.
Oh.
But we don't actually know. We tried everything during the week. Like, we changed everything, but we never found. It's like one of those, those mystery things in racing where you just don't know, and then everyone says, "Oh, it can't be that hard to find, right?" And you're like,
"Do you want to have a look?"
Yeah. Looking at it, So we honestly we don't know, and I think the car's gone to the Rover Museum now, so probably we'll never know.
Yeah.
But
just in the end, on the plinth like this.
In the end, that's what's beautiful about racing sometimes, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, we're going to finish the show, Earl, with a question which we ask all of our guests. We call it the Racing Genie question, and basically it's the Racing Genie grants you a wish, and you can choose any race to do in history, any race you like, in any car you like, and you can have any teammate or co-driver you like. To give you an idea, last week, Larry Ten Voord chose the Carrera Cup car at Monaco with Ayrton Senna, which I thought was quite a cool answer. So Alan McNish, he chose Fernando Alonso, Suzuka, and the 911 GT1 98. So what would your choice be?
I'm going to go with the NASCAR one.
I knew it was going to be NASCAR.
I'd say Daytona 500 with Dale Earnhardt as a teammate.
Senior.
Cool. Senior.
A senior. You sure he'd probably take you off though, would he not?
Yeah, but just to race him would be. That's the whole point. The drive that is his race. I mean, he was the king of drafting, and it would just be cool.
Wow, you really are a frustrated NASCAR driver underneath there, aren't you?
Well, I did my first race, so actually I'm sort of ticked the box now.
Do you want to give a bit? Is there in 2021 any more opportunities to do that again? Do you think?
To be honest, I haven't looked that much, and with the whole madness, I think everyone's trying to find their own seats in their own way, and then we'll see what at the end of it. But for me, sort of, I'm quite a happy chappy. I really want to go back to Bathurst, to be honest, as well, and try win that race. That's one that I want to win.
To the 1,000.
To the 1,000.
Yeah. Tell us about that. But actually, I'm going to break the rule now. You co-drove with the best team, or one of the top teams in the paddock, Triple Eight. What was that experience like doing the Bathurst 1,000? As a Kiwi, to go up there and take on the Aussies, and of course Kiwis have done pretty well the last few years.
To be honest, it was phenomenal. I mean, to do the 1,000, it's sort of like that dream of what. When you're a kid, you watch it at home, and then to finally do the race was, awesome. And I just loved the entire week, and the whole thing down in Australia is really, really cool. The fans and everything like that is what makes it special. And the cars are cool to drive. And Yeah, we had a good race, actually. We were in second, could have won, but then we had an issue in the stop and went back to 17th and went back from 17th to 5th, which was actually a really, really fun drive for my stint. So I loved it. And it's sort of like unfinished business, when you feel that you should have been on the podium, but you weren't. So definitely want to find a way back there and give it another go, because it's sort of one of those ones that you want to get off the bucket list. I've got Bathurst 1000, Daytona with your watch, and Nürburgring to go.
If that's all that's left on the slate at 30 years old, you must be pretty happy. It's been some career, hasn't it?
Yeah, I can't complain. I mean, managed to have some really amazing. I mean, even this year we thought it was a bit of a disaster, and now still come away with winning IMSA, then a Sebring and Spa title is good, and we've still got IGTC coming up. Lawrence and myself go to try win that championship next week. We're leading the championship as drivers somehow. Don't know how, but we're leading. We're doing 2 races, so we're going to go try win the championship.
That's at Kyalami for Kyalami 9 hours.
Correct.
Ah, fantastic. And is it right that Porsche own Kyalami? Am I right in saying?
Porsche South Africa own Kyalami.
Ah, okay, right. I'm with you now. Okay.
So actually, Toby Venter owns Kyalami.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I see.
Huge motor racing fan.
Ah, okay, I see. Well, we wish you all the very best of luck with that. We'll be watching on GT World on YouTube. So good luck with that one. Is it just you and Lawrence in the car, or who's the third driver?
Estra.
Oh, okay. Quick, Kev. I think we've got him on in a couple of weeks, so probably after Kyalami. So we'll be able to get all the gossip from him when he comes on.
Yep. So yeah, I think we've got a good driver line up there. So I think we'll be right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but before now, I'm just saying this to Kat and Luke. I'm that's my prediction for Kyalami 9. Yeah.
I'd be happy to go with Kat. She seemed really lucky for Spa.
Maybe we should Kat pick you, so it's a good omen, obviously. Well, Earl, thanks so much for making the time to chat to us here on the Porsche Sport podcast. It's been a pleasure to talk about all the incredible things you've done in your career, and I know you've got big plans for 2021, and finally good luck for Kyalami next week. Thanks for coming on the show.
Cool, thank you very much, guys. Thanks for having me.
The Porsche Sport Podcast, powered by Porsche Centre Leeds. Test drive the new Porsche Taycan and experience Soul Electrified.